Imagine being so allergic to paying taxes that you'd rather buy a pet zebra, register it as a dependent, and then argue with the IRS about its school supplies. That's the level of financial wizardry we're talking about here. People who treat the tax code like a choose-your-own-adventure novel, except every ending is you get audited. And if you think the dumbest move is claiming your swimming pool as emotional therapy, oh no, that's just the appetizer. The truly ridiculous stuff is still ahead, and trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. 1. Let's start with the guy who literally tried to write off his swimming pool as a medical expense. His argument? The pool helped his arthritis, because nothing screams necessary medical treatment like a backyard oasis with a tiki bar and a floating margarita cooler. According to this logic, a Vegas casino is just a giant therapy center, and a yacht is basically a floating hospital. The IRS didn't buy it, of course, but you almost have to admire the audacity. He wasn't trying to sneak in a few work lunches. He went straight for doctor-prescribed water park. That's not cheating on taxes. That's applying for sainthood in the Church of Dumb. 2. Then there was the guy who deducted his dog as a dependent. Not as a service animal, not as a therapy pet, just a straight-up child. He literally put his Labrador down as if it were a toddler in preschool. Imagine the IRS agent reading that form. Okay, 2 kids, 1 spouse, and, oh look, a dependent named Mr. Snuffles. The best part? He actually argued it in person, saying the dog was basically family. Buddy, so is my Netflix password, but I'm not claiming it on a 1040. 3. My personal favorite might be the couple who wrote off their wedding as a business expense. Their reasoning? They met at work, so the wedding was technically a networking event. By that logic, Tinder is just LinkedIn with better lighting, and my cousin's drunken barbecue is an IRS-approved corporate summit. They even deducted the cake, claiming it was promotional material. If the IRS had gone along with it, we'd be living in a world where every marriage is just a really expensive receipt. 4. Someone once tried to deduct their cat's guard duty as a home security system. Apparently, the cat's presence deterred burglars. Yeah, nothing says cutting-edge security like a furball who naps 18 hours a day and panics when a cucumber shows up. What's next? Claiming your goldfish as a lifeguard? Shockingly, the IRS did not accept Garfield as a professional bodyguard. 5. And then there's the guy who deducted his entire house as office space because he occasionally answered work emails from his couch. His couch. By that math, my bed is also an office, my fridge is a break room, and my bathroom is HR. If the IRS approved that one, we'd all be living in Fortune 500 corporations called our apartments. 6. A horse breeder once claimed that buying a racehorse was a tax write-off because he was researching investments. Translation, he wanted a shiny pet with hooves and hoped Uncle Sam would pay for it. It's the adult version of buying a Ferrari and calling it a commute vehicle. Spoiler, the horse did not win any races, and the IRS did not accept equine stock analysis as a job description. 7. One genius wrote off his video game console as training equipment for hand-eye coordination. He argued that Call of Duty improved his productivity at work. That's like claiming Mario Kart taught you advanced traffic laws. If that excuse worked, Twitch streamers would be the backbone of the global economy. Nice try, champ, but your Xbox is not a 401k. 8. Believe it or not, there's an actual case of someone deducting their psychic readings as therapy. They argued that clairvoyance helped them with business decisions. Yeah, because nothing screams reliable like a woman in a strip mall storefront telling you Mercury is in retrograde. If psychics really worked, they'd be billionaires shorting the stock market, not charging $30 for palm readings. 9. Another favorite, a professional bodybuilder tried to deduct all of his body oil as a business expense. And honestly, I kind of respect the consistency. He argued it was essential for competition, like a mechanic writing off motor oil. But imagine the IRS agent explaining this to their boss. Yes, Jerry. He wants to deduct $8,000 in Crisco. 10. Some people get really bold, like the guy who deducted the cost of his divorce as a job expense. He said the stress of his marriage was interfering with his work performance, so technically the divorce improved productivity, which is brilliant if you're trying to turn family court into TurboTax. Too bad the IRS doesn't give out deductions for being emotionally incompetent. 11. Someone once tried to write off their entire wardrobe as a business expense because, and I quote, "I wear clothes to work." Yes, genius, you also wear oxygen to work, but that doesn't make your lungs tax deductible. Unless you're a clown, an astronaut, or Batman, your pants are not specialized equipment. 12. My absolute favorite loophole attempt? A guy tried to list his mistress as a consultant. He paid her an allowance, and then deducted it as business services. First of all, bold. Second, if the IRS had approved that, half of Wall Street would have rebranded their affairs as advisory committees. She wasn't a consultant. She was a line item in the world's dumbest PowerPoint. 13. Let's not forget the taxpayer who wrote off a yacht as a floating office. He argued that holding meetings on the water created a productive environment. Right, because nothing says productivity like piña coladas and Wi-Fi that cuts out whenever a seagull passes by. In reality, it was less office and more Instagram backdrop for midlife crisis. 14. One entrepreneur tried to deduct the cost of his children's private school tuition as employee training. His argument? The kids were future heirs to the business, so technically he was investing in the workforce, which is exactly how you turn algebra class into a hostile takeover. Sadly for him, the IRS does not consider a third grader's spelling test a corporate skill. 15. Another bold move, deducting your gym membership as professional maintenance. The guy claimed staying fit made him more competitive at work. By that logic, I should be able to deduct my Netflix bill for mental recovery and my Taco Bell runs for team morale. It's not a business expense, my dude. It's an overpriced treadmill you barely use. 16. Someone else tried to deduct their entire wedding ring purchase as a business expense, calling it an investment in long-term stability. Look, I get it. Marriage is a merger, but you can't just call your spouse a hostile takeover and hand the bill to the government. That's not a deduction. That's a prenup with sparkles. 17. And finally, there's the guy who deducted his tattoos as advertising. His reasoning? The tattoos were of his company's logo, so technically he was a walking billboard. Honestly, that one almost makes sense. But the IRS didn't agree, probably because no one's buying financial services from a guy with flaming skulls and mom inked across his chest. Turns out your biceps aren't a business card. 18. One man proudly deducted the cost of his nightly bar tab, claiming it was client entertainment. Except, of course, he had no clients. His idea of business development was apparently talking to strangers at the bar until they politely invented fake names. He even stapled receipts from whiskey shots and karaoke cover charges to his return. Imagine the IRS auditor flipping through that stack. Ah yes, $47 in Fireball. That must have been a critical negotiation. If drunk rambling counts as commerce, then every college frat party is just an unregistered Fortune 500 company. 19. A dentist once deducted his luxury car as medical equipment, insisting that driving a Porsche to work was essential for patient care, because nothing calms you before oral surgery like seeing your dentist pull up looking like he's auditioning for Fast and Furious 12 root canal drift. He argued that the car's smooth ride prevented stress. You know what also prevents stress? Novocaine. Shockingly, the IRS decided leather seats and turbochargers weren't medical devices. Who knew? 20. One genius tried to deduct his Netflix subscription, calling it research. Research for what exactly? He was a real estate agent, not a film critic. He told the IRS he was studying human behavior, which, if true, means Tiger King is now a sociology textbook. The real kicker? He also deducted popcorn as an office snack. If that's a valid expense, then I should be writing this script off as anthropology every time I scroll TikTok. 21. There was also a guy who deducted his stripper bills as consulting fees. He argued that exotic dancers gave him valuable business insights. Yeah, like, tip me more or I stop talking. He even listed specific clubs as meeting venues. Imagine the tax agent reading that return. Sir, you spent $4,000 at the Pink Pony. Were you negotiating mergers or just tipping Destiny for a lap dance? Spoiler, the IRS doesn't consider glitter-covered advice tax deductible. 22. Someone once deducted the cost of installing a personal bowling alley in his mansion, claiming it was for team-building exercises. Because apparently, nothing builds a strong workforce like watching your boss roll gutter balls in his socks. He even listed the shoe spray as a business expense. Look, I've seen terrible corporate retreats, but at least they try to involve trust falls. This guy thought his tax bill should cover a private strike zone. The IRS, shockingly, did not agree. 23. One taxpayer tried to deduct the cost of their entire divorce lawyer bill as a business expense. Their explanation? The divorce improved their financial focus and was therefore good for the company. I mean, sure, nothing screams productivity like screaming matches over who gets the espresso machine. If divorce court counts as a deductible business meeting, then half the country deserves a refund. But the IRS said no, probably while wondering why family therapy wasn't listed under operating costs. 24. A professional clown once deducted his pet goldfish as a coworker. He even argued that feeding the fish was part of performance maintenance. Imagine sitting across from that guy at an audit, nodding while he explains how a 6-ounce guppy qualifies for payroll. Honestly, I kind of respect the hustle. It's one thing to write off costumes and makeup, but calling a fish your colleague is next-level desperation. The IRS naturally flushed that deduction straight down the drain. 25. Another taxpayer deducted his entire backyard fireworks display as advertising. He said blowing up $12,000 worth of rockets in his neighborhood was brand awareness. Right, because nothing sells insurance like traumatizing dogs and setting off car alarms at 2 a.m. By that logic, every 4th of July barbecue is just one giant corporate tax write-off. The IRS reviewed the receipts, laughed, and politely declined to sponsor his neighborhood apocalypse. 26. Believe it or not, one guy deducted his tanning salon visits as a business necessity. He said a tan gave him a competitive advantage. Unless his job was professional sunburn tester, I'm not sure how glowing orange makes you more productive. He even tried to deduct spray tans under emergency touch-ups. Imagine the audit notes. Claimant insists his bronzed skin directly correlates with quarterly revenue. The IRS did not buy it. Shocker. 27. One woman deducted the cost of building a backyard wine cellar as inventory storage. Except she didn't own a winery. She just really liked Chardonnay. Her defense was that wine made her a better negotiator. If that's true, every drunk aunt at Thanksgiving should be CFO by now. The IRS decided a 1,000-bottle personal collection does not, in fact, count as business inventory, unless your job is alcoholic. 28. A lawyer once deducted the cost of his home swimming pool chemicals as office maintenance. He said the pool was used to improve client trust. Sure, nothing says professionalism like drafting contracts while floating on a giant flamingo raft. He even deducted sunscreen. By that math, I should be writing off aloe vera every time I get a sunburn. The IRS shut him down, probably while picturing him holding depositions in swim trunks. 29. Then there's the guy who deducted his hair plugs as a business necessity. He claimed baldness was hurting his credibility in the office. You have to respect the creativity, turning midlife crisis treatments into corporate strategy. But unless your job title is shampoo model, new follicles are not a deductible asset. The IRS wasn't moved by his tearful PowerPoint labeled before and after. 30. One man deducted his child's birthday party as employee morale. The child was 7. His defense? The kid would one day inherit the business. If SpongeBob cake and a rented bounce house are valid write-offs, then every PTA fundraiser is a Fortune 500 conference. The IRS, unsurprisingly, said no, probably while wondering if the magician's rabbit was also on payroll. 31. Another taxpayer deducted the cost of his luxury watch as a time management tool. Technically true, but also insane. He wasn't a pilot, not a diver, not even a surgeon. He just wanted Uncle Sam to fund his Rolex flex. He even wrote, "The watch keeps me punctual for client meetings." Buddy, so does the clock on your iPhone. The IRS decided $18,000 in Swiss precision was not essential scheduling equipment. 32. A preacher once deducted the cost of his entire wardrobe as holy garments, which would have made sense if we were talking robes and collars. But no, we're talking designer suits, Gucci shoes, and one very shiny belt. His justification? Looking good attracted followers, which sounds less like a church expense and more like a nightclub strategy. The IRS did not baptize his wardrobe into tax-exempt status. 33. A small business owner deducted his daily fast food runs as staff meals. The staff? Just him. He even included supersized combos under team nourishment. That's not a deduction, that's a cry for help. Imagine the IRS agent reading, "Employee satisfaction, 2 McChickens and a large Coke." If Big Macs are a business expense, then half the country has been secretly running restaurants out of their cars. 34. And finally, one man deducted the cost of a personal helicopter as commuting expenses. He said it saved time getting to work, which is technically true. If your job is cosplaying as Batman, he even claimed the helicopter maintenance as vehicle upkeep. The IRS auditor probably had to reread the file 3 times before saying no. Because yes, flying to work in your own helicopter is very cool. It's also not deductible unless your boss is literally James Bond. 35. A surgeon once deducted the cost of his home karaoke machine, claiming it reduced stress and therefore improved his surgical skills. Nothing like belting out Bon Jovi at 2 a.m. with a plastic microphone to make you better at removing gallbladders. He even wrote that his neighbors' complaints about noise were evidence of his commitment to professional improvement. If the IRS had approved it, every suburban dad screaming "Sweet Caroline" at a backyard barbecue would qualify as a medical deduction. 36. One businessman deducted his luxury yacht under the category client lodging. He insisted his clients needed comfortable accommodations for meetings. The funny part? He didn't even have clients. His meetings were fishing trips with his brother-in-law. Picture an IRS auditor reading, $2,700 for lobster catering. Meeting notes, caught a big one. Yeah, buddy, you sure did. The IRS caught you. 37. Another man deducted his weekly psychic readings, arguing that crystal ball insights guided his investment strategy. I mean, if a woman wearing 12 scarves in a strip mall can really predict the S&P 500, then Warren Buffett's entire empire is built on fake nails and incense. The auditor apparently asked, "Did the psychic warn you this deduction was illegal?" She did not. 38. One guy tried to deduct his entire bachelor party as business development. Vegas flights, hotel rooms, bottle service, strippers, the whole mess. His defense? He invited 2 coworkers. Right, because drunk karaoke with inflatable dolls is obviously strategic networking. If that's deductible, then every frat house in America is technically a startup incubator. 39. A politician once deducted his haircuts, calling them public relations expenses, which might have been fine if we were talking modest trims. Instead, he filed receipts for $400 styling sessions. If his hair was really worth that much, it should have voted in the election too. The IRS shut him down, probably while muttering, "Sir, your haircut doesn't even look that good." 40. A lawyer deducted his therapeutic clown visits. Yes, he hired an actual clown to make balloon animals during stressful weeks. He argued the laughter kept him sharp in court, which is ironic because he tried to argue this in court and lost. Somewhere there's a red-nosed man in floppy shoes who accidentally became a tax crime witness. 41. A farmer deducted his ostrich farm as agricultural innovation. Problem was, the ostriches weren't for meat or eggs. He just thought they were fun to have around. That's not innovation, that's a petting zoo. He even deducted cowboy hats for the birds. Imagine an IRS agent circling the line item, $900, ostrich wardrobe. 42. Another genius deducted his Tinder subscription, calling it business networking. Right, because swiping right on GymRat27 is clearly a corporate strategy. He actually told the IRS he was expanding professional opportunities through social interaction, which is just a very fancy way of saying, "I'm lonely, please let me write it off." 43. Someone deducted their backyard roller coaster as employee recreation. He built it out of lumber and old metal rails, then tried to pass it off as team-building equipment. If OSHA had seen it, they'd have fainted. The ride wasn't safe for kids, let alone adults. Imagine handing that receipt to an auditor. "Yes, sir, this death trap is deductible." 44. One guy deducted his custom stormtrooper armor from Star Wars as work attire. His job? Software engineer. He said it boosted morale in the office. Look, unless your boss is Darth Vader and your office is the Death Star, the IRS does not accept cosplay as a uniform. 45. A tax preparer actually deducted his cat's litter as office supplies. He said the cat lived in the office and therefore its bathroom habits were part of maintenance, which means he technically tried to convince the IRS that scooping poop was a business write-off. Somewhere, Garfield is laughing. 46. One man deducted the cost of his hot air balloon, calling it transportation. He literally floated to work a few times and thought that made it valid. Imagine him explaining to the IRS, yes, it's more efficient than traffic. The IRS declined, probably while picturing him in a suit drifting over the freeway like some kind of confused Victorian. 47. A celebrity deducted the cost of her pet monkey's diamond collar. She argued it was part of her brand image. That's not an expense, that's Instagram thirst. If accessorizing a monkey is deductible, then my dog deserves a Rolex. The IRS shut it down before the whole zoo tried to file. 48. Another guy deducted his tattoo removal as a rebranding expense. Apparently, YOLO 2009 across his bicep was hurting his credibility. His argument, removing it improved his corporate image. Honestly, almost makes sense, but the IRS doesn't hand out sympathy refunds for bad life choices. 49. A Silicon Valley founder deducted cryogenic freezing sessions, claiming it was an investment in longevity. Basically, he wanted taxpayers to pay for him to live forever. Imagine the IRS notes. Claimant insists he is deductible until 2149. The government does not, in fact, cover sci-fi immortality plans. 50. And then there was the guy who deducted his luxury mansion under employee housing. His employees? Just him and his dog. He even listed the wine cellar as a conference room. Look, I don't know what kind of meetings he was holding, but if they required 200 bottles of Merlot, I want in. 51. And finally, the undisputed champion, a man once deducted the cost of faking his own kidnapping. He staged the whole thing, claimed he'd been abducted on a business trip, and tried to write off the ransom as an expense. Let me repeat, he literally invented a fake hostage situation to lower his tax bill. That's not just fraud, that's performance art. The IRS didn't just reject it, they probably hung the file in the office break room as a motivational poster titled, "Why We Drink. Mic dropped." And there you have it, an entire parade of people turning tax law into their own personal circus act, complete with receipts for stupidity. Now it's your turn. Which one deserves the crown for dumbest scheme? Drop your pick in the comments, or share the most ridiculous money fail you've ever seen. And if you somehow survived this marathon of idiocy, hit like, subscribe, and buckle up, because trust me, the next round of financial madness is even worse.